Um, so, by far, my favorite part about doing what I do with Mountain King, pedal building and stuff, is the designing of the circuits. And you know, also the aesthetic design too. But, right from the beginning, designing the circuits was like instantly exciting and something that once I started doing it, I was like, this is what I've always wanted to do, kind of thing, like it was this thing I hadn't realized I wanted to do until I started doing it, and then, and it did, it made sense, because I I've always been someone that likes to be creative, that likes to, be invent things and, you know, explore things, and it's designing is all those things put together. Um, so yeah, it was great. Um, but it's always also, it doesn't. It's not all fun and games. Like there's difficulties with it. There's obstacles, um, especially early on. More so early on than it is now. But um, and I think one of the difficulties has been knowing when to stop. When is it a design done? Um, when is it ready for the world? Um, and some of the problems with that comes down to me and my personal issues, like feeling like learning to feel dealing with how do I say this? Um, feeling like what comes from me is good and good enough and all that. um I've always been a perfectionist and a idealist. um so whatever I do, I need it. I need to feel like it's, I hold everything to like a high level. It really needs to be something special for it to be good at all. It needs to be like it need, in my mind, it needs to be better than most other things that would be in its category. Or why would I do it? Like if I can't do something great, why do it at all? I mean, there is a reason to do it. It's, if it brings me or whoever personal satisfaction, even if it's mundane and like everybody else, whatever, fine. But if it was that, I wouldn't be doing it as an occupation because it would be silly. Like I kind of think there's a lot of people out there that are like doing it and having it be a business when it really should just be a personal hobby, that they do. It's like why overpopulate the world of effect pedals with like a million things that are exactly the same as one another. People with there's so much that like people put nothing personal into it. It's like it's just weird. I don't get it. Like I don't, whatever. I mean, I'm all for people going into business for themselves and doing their own thing, but do your own thing. I think people don't realize that they have something to offer inside of them that no one else has to offer, and they just need to look for that thing. But I digress. um, yeah, so knowing when something is good enough to release has always been a difficulty. And some of that is, unfortunately, especially early on, was like me comparing my stuff to others too much and saying, is this good enough? Is this as good as this and that? And the problem is, if you do that, you'll never be done designing something. You'll always be comparing it and saying, oh, it could be better, it could be this, it could be that, and it just is endless. So, I had to really do this soul searching of why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of this? What's my motivation? What at what point does something become, final enough? I mean, there's going to be things where I release it and then years down the road I might modify it or do something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it is what it's supposed to be, and it's not going to go on. It's not going to need any major changes unless otherwise it becomes something else. But one of the things I noticed with designing early on was there was things that I just experimented and slowly developed into a circuit that I was into, and a lot of just not random experimentation, but just let me try this, and then there was things that I designed, and they've always been the odder things and the more esoteric gadgets. But I would design them, and I would do it in almost like a semi-trance kind of state. Now, once upon a time, I drank heavily, and so I was kind of in a trance-like state, 24/7. But it's not. I know now that it's not just a result of a chemically induced thing. But I would design these things, and then I would I write out the schematic of this. I'd experiment and do this and come up, and I would look at the schematics, and I do that with everything. I look at my schematics endlessly. I draw out the circuit when I first design it, and at night I just sit around and I look at it, and I go through it, and I think about everything that's happening to the signal, and I'm looking at the circuit and seeing other circuits that remind me of it or something, just have all these things going on, and I come up with ideas, and I'm like, oh, and then I start writing notes. I'm going to try this here, try putting a diode from here to here, and there was all this stuff. I started noticing that I would develop a circuit, and I would be looking at the circuit. I'm like, what is this part of the circuit? What? I don't really understand it. Why did I do that? And, I would think about it okay, well, when I was doing it, I obviously knew what I was doing or something, right? And, and it would often be stuff that I hadn't seen other places. And I'd be like, what? Why did I come up with this? How did I come up with this? And there'd be circuits that would be all that, just like all this like weird things, and like it would all, I'd be like, how do I do this? And I would come up with this weird circuit to do it. And then some of the stuff to this day, I'm like looking at it and I'm like, what is, this, like, I don't know why this does what it does, but I know at the time, I, I, I knew what I was doing to some degree, or I was doing it, like I remember doing it. I don't remember, I don't always remember the thought process though. And over time, and I felt, I'm a crazy person, so I have all kinds of weird, you know, thoughts on what it is, and including other dimensional beings and kinds of far out stuff, and but it would still be it would be frustrating because I would be like, there's part of me like fighting against it, saying like, well, but I don't, like, why is this, what's going on? And I want I've always wanted like control, it's like that, having a grip on everything, so that I guess it's a way of having security and feeling safe or something. But at one point recently, like a couple of years ago, I had this just kind of, I think it was I think this thought came about as a result of me being in therapy and just talking about myself and analyzing things and learning more about myself through therapy, and desperately wanting to be a happier, more together kind of person. So I was like really working my butt off to get better, and looking at how hard I am on myself all the time, to a fault, really to the point where it just is not healthy. And and definitely some of my, I have channeled a lot of my negative habits, cognitive habits. I've channeled them into something good. They're still not good, but I exploit them in a way that I can make them into something good. And I mean, Mountain Kings, all these designs, some of it, each one of them has some, I've exploited my, negative cognitive habits and to the point where they became something good, or produce something good. Like I said, they're not good. They're just, I can do something good with them. But anyway, so I was just saying, like, I gotta, it just frustrates me. I gotta find a way to do this without getting so frustrated all the time. Like, at some point, I would get where I just, like, almost couldn't deal with it. And I'm like, I just want to, like, put it away and, like, not do it ever again. And, with just, just get to a fever pitch with my frustration. And then I was working on some design, and I was experimenting with something, and it was, what was it? It was like, sort of a proximity based circuit, where move my hand closer, it does something, move it away, does something else. And it had a really, it's very simple. It had a very strange effect, like, or very strange reaction. And I was like mystified by it. I was like, why? I'm like, this is so weird. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But look, it's when I put my hand from here to here, it does something. When I go in the opposite way, it does something else. It's, why? How could that be? What is this? And I was, you know, these are the things that keep me going, because I become awestruck by this stuff, and I'm like, wow, this is fascinating. I must understand. I must learn more. But with this, I was like, wow, this is just crazy. It's like, why is this doing this? And I was like, does it really matter? It's doing something amazing. Like, if I don't figure it out, is that really a bad thing? And I started thinking about it, and in a way, I still think it's kind of a bad thing, because I've had trouble doing it over again. But what it taught me in a roundabout way is that when I'm designing, I need to, let me go back. One of the frustrations with this stuff where I design it, I'm like, I don't really know why I design it, why it's this and that, is because I want to be able to replicate. I want to be able to do it again. And if I don't understand it, I can't do it again. It's just like chance happenings. And I don't like that. I want to be able to do it, again and again and again. But what I realized was that, I told myself, first of all, there's some things we're just not going to understand. We're just these puny little beings. We're not going to understand everything. There's things that are bigger than us, and those things that are bigger than us, we're never going to completely understand. We don't have the perspective to understand them, and we have to live with that. We have to find a way to live with that and be okay with it. And I realized that when I'm designing, I need to open myself up to outside influence, whatever that outside influence may be, whether it's my memory just pulling something that I forgot I knew out, or some energies coming from outer space, or other beings, or whatever. I need to open myself up to it and let it come in as I'm designing, and not fight it, and not have it become something that's negative and difficult and an obstacle. I need to just let some things happen and flow with it. Don't, if you just keep fighting against everything and being stubborn about it, everything is going to be a chore. Everything's going to just be frustrating and exhausting. So, and you don't want to just not, I'm not saying, get rid of your free will, but, it's like you got to just open yourself up to the energies around you and work with them. And, I think over time that will help me understand what this otherness is, what it is, how it works, where it comes from. But I think I need to just let it be, and let it do its thing, and I'll just pay attention and work with it and interact, in a, you know, getting along with it kind of way. And since I've done that, it's been, you know, it's been awesome. And it's also, you know, I know some at some point it's gonna be annoyed. My designing, like I say all the time, is my artwork, and what I mean by that is there's like multi layers to the design, to the what it is. On one layer, it's this electronic gadget that people buy from me and they use to make music with. And on another layer of it is this like expression from me, this like sort of like a story or something. It's like there's like an image to it, to the circuit, like how a circuit is configured, like creates. I'm not talking about a physical. There's a picture in my head that is associated with it, and there's feelings and thoughts and things that are associated with it. So part of it, is this expression. So if what I'm getting to is knowing when the design is done. And part of that is, did it fulfill this need in me for this expression, this particular expression? Does it fulfill that need? And if it does, then okay, good. And trying to get lost here in my head with all this. But and I think this flowing with the otherness in there is part of that. And just kind of opening myself up to my own inner stuff is always a part of it, as well as outside stuff, and saying like, is this what you want, Alan? Does this groove the way you want? Is this what you're looking for? But in a way that's not so cerebral, not so clear words, more like just what I've come to, the way I explain it now is I design with intuition. That's what this is. It's intuition. It's this guidance or potential guidance that's in us all. And it's not something that is totally clear cut or things that we can put into words or explain. But we know what it is. We know how it feels. We know what it does to us. And I now just, am always working with these subtle feelings as I'm designing stuff. Like I'm just always I let it just come and go, and it's like working alongside like the more just technical, material, down the earth kind of part of the circuit. There are these two things that are working, and I'm just trying to make the two things work to get along with each other and work well in this like harmonious interaction. And so now there's times where I get to a circuit and I'm going back and forth between like two different capacitor values, and I'm like And there's like no one on the planet would ever hear any difference. And I'm switching back and forth, and I'm like, there's a little subtle difference. I'm like, but which one's better? You know, well, neither of them is better. They're just different. So what do I do? What do I do? What do I, how do I make this decision? And stuff like that used to just make me insane. And I would go back and forth, and there's still times I let it get out of hand, and it does. But I just feel like, stop, get somebody else's opinion, get something, just this, you need to make a decision and move on, man. And now, when I get to those moments, generally, I just like take a deep breath, close my eyes, and I say, just which one is it? And I don't think about it. I just let the answer come into the front of my brain, and that's it. And I move on. And I'm like, this is it. And it doesn't have to be the right thing. I made a decision, and I'm good with it, and I'm going to move on so I can, progress on down the, spiritual road. So, yeah. So that's that's what it's like for me when I design. It's always been amazing and great, and it used to be much more frustrating and turbulent, and it's getting less and less like that, and it's becoming like more fulfilling and more satisfying, And it's going to, I think that, my satisfaction or happiness with it is going to transfer over into the people who use my stuff. I think they do, and I think they're going to, with this, all the unreleased stuff, I think they're going to be able to perceive that, and it's going to be something that will be beneficial to them as well, as they use my, creations. Like, I think it's hard to explain, and maybe this is something over time I'll be able to explain. I'll understand better. I'll be able to explain better. But I think people are going to be able to. I'll be able to transfer that stuff from me through these things that I design and make to them. So it'll be this like flow, and and then their feedback, when people let me know what they think of my things, which they do all the time. My customers are just amazing. They're just incredible. They like give me so much great constructive feedback, positive feedback, and then that in turn influences me, and it becomes this like, it's going to be this awesome, infinite loop of energy and all this intuition, like becoming at our fingertips, where we can control it and do something with it more. So, all right, I better stop. We'll watch this and see how ridiculous it sounds before I show anybody else. So, but it's been good for me, even if I don't, like my therapist says, I understand things in a verbal. When I talk about things, I understand them better, and it's true, and it's I gotta remember that and keep doing stuff like this, because it helps me, focus it and understand it better. So anyway.